We welcome Nicky Bomba to noise11.com and happy anniversary, Nicky, for the Melbourne Ska Orchestra.
Thank you very much. It's been 20 years in the making.
I can't believe it's been 20 years.
I can't actually either because, I mean, I still have very, clear, vivid memories of the first time we actually got together and the feeling that kind of happened. Not knowing that it would blossom into this amazing, ramshackle train that threatens to fall off the track but never does. Stupendous kind of, circus. It's such a fun-filled thing, this orchestra, and such a unique energy and such a unique entity that, you never in my wildest dreams you think a band of this size would have any traction, So it's been amazing, the 20, and we've done so many things, and it's still because of the love of the music. That's why it happened in the first place.
Yeah.
And I think that's why,
Yeah, but that original idea of getting together was to mark an anniversary anyway, wasn't it? Because that was
exactly. It was the 40th anniversary of when, supposedly ska hit the planet. I mean, ska had been happening in Jamaica at the time, but 1963 is when Millie Small's hit My Boy Lollipop became a worldwide smash. And then soon after that, Bob Marley and the Wailers with Simmer Down, which was their first bona fide #1 hit. And that's also the year I was born, 63. So it was 2003 was the 40th anniversary, and it was incredible how it happened because we just put the word out to see whether there would be anyone interested in being part of the Melbourne Ska Orchestra to commemorate this event, and we were inundated. There was like the amount of, because there were a lot of reggae bands and sort of ska bands kind of doing stuff, and but kind of scattered around, and was never really kind of like a consolidated community. And this kind of brought us all together. And till this day, we just played on the weekend, and there was a member who's now 78 years old who was there at the first gig. He was actually part of that whole thing. And still strong, still the energy of what that band created from the first gig has maintained, and again, it was an anniversary of celebrating ska from 63, but there was a lot of love involved in the first place in kind of going, we want to be part of this. It's not about the finance. It's just about that this music has done something for us, and it was the seed of all reggae and everything. So it was, again, the love and the energy involved was what kicked it off in the first place, and I think that's really what the essence of this band is.
And you get to document this journey in a new song, Something Strong, which is very cool.
Yeah, well, we were actually going to kind of do a new album, and then we spoke to the label and said, look, probably a best of is a good idea, because we have got songs we've written, but in order to bring the band together to do a whole album is quite it's like a military operation. But I thought at least a song would be great to kind of keep. The song's not even on the vinyl because we were still writing the song when we were putting the vinyl together, because you need to do all that stuff 4 or 5 months in advance, And I thought, okay, let's write about let's write a song about that, not just, let's get actually quite narrative about it. And so the verses say how we first met and how we ended up in Glastonbury and the BBC and Montreal, and it's worth writing about too, and in a ska format. And I love writing, that's my happy place, is being in the studio and just kind of creating. So having a brief is an easy thing, it's, you're not just kind of plucking. It's like, oh, well, we just have to tell the story, So it came together very quickly. And I think it's, it's sonically one of the best things we've done too. I think we've really been able to capture the excitement of an orchestra as though you're watching it, but, coming out of a mobile phone. That's a hard thing these days.
It is an incredible story, isn't it? You mentioned Glastonbury there. So few Australian acts get the opportunity to perform at Glastonbury, but there's also been the Montreal Jazz Festival. On a local level, Blues Fest. The festivals here. So you've had North America, you've had the UK, you've had Australia. This band has really done the globe in that 20 years.
Well, look, again, we didn't think that it would have that type of traction. We didn't even think that it would have that type of appeal. But yeah, a lot of things. First of all, when we released the album, it was immediately picked up by this director that was doing a film about ska out of Coventry. And he rang us and he said, "This album's amazing. Can we use 3 songs to put on the film?" And we're going, wow, okay, there's kudos number one. The London International, it's called Rocksteady Awards, voted us number 1 that year. You know, this is in the UK. This is an Australian band, and we were influenced by the UK. It was a bit like, you know, then the London International Ska Festival, then, of course, in Australia, WOMAD and Blues Fest, Montreal Jazz Festival, and we also have played in Turkey, in Istanbul. And we're the first Australian, or first white band to play on the island of Mare off the coast of New Caledonia.
Wow.
Where we basically said, you know, we gave them what it was going to cost for the airfares and everything to get there. And they said, no problems, we'll just tell the fishermen, because we'll just get that amount worth in lobsters, and the lobsters will convert the money and that'll pay for the band. True story. So apologies to the lobsters, but yeah, that's how that worked.
It's always a milestone when an act gets to bring out the greatest hits or the best of, you know, the compilation album. In this one, where you're documenting 2003 to 2023, I'm really glad to see you've carried forward the Get Smart theme. You know, one of my favourite moments from this band, the Melbourne Ska Orchestra.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first time they basically said, okay, we're going to give you a bit of a decent budget. Now, a decent budget for us in the past would have been, you know, $2 or $3 grand, right? And we would have just done what we would have come to do it with all the other bands to put something together. So they said, we'll give you $6 grand. I was like, wow, Fellini production, you know? And so it was the first time we did, you know, proper research. We talked about, and the concept changed over the span of, you know, 2 or 3 weeks, you know, because we were supposed to be walking just through doors, and the door would end up in another ambience. And then you walk, it was all about going through doors, you know, but logistically it kind of didn't work out. So even though 2 days before so that particular film clip and that particular song, you know, is actually, we're over 10 million hits on YouTube now with that. But it really captured the essence of kind of the kookiness, the kind of, you have to have some kind of humor and joy around having a band like this, otherwise it's not going to work. And that comes across with the film clip, and then with the idea of, like, yeah, ending up with this performance with, you know, sold out at the Forum. So it does capture, you could use that as, you know, song 101, Melbourne Ska Orchestra, Get Smart definitely would be, you know, in the top 3, you know, as far as, like, if you wanted to get a good vision of what this band was really like and the mayhem involved, you know, that song. And I'm glad you like it. It was an obvious choice for the best of.
Yeah, well, you went as far as doing the entire album of themes, but there was also a theme within the themes, because not only was there Get Smart, there was the Pink Panther, and there was also Austin Powers in there. So, you know, you've got...
And which we did on the weekend. Well, it's a very common trait, if you like, amongst when ska first came on the planet. And there was a band called the Scatterlights, which was really like that. They were only together for a short amount of time, but the amount of work they did was phenomenal. And what happened was they did, at the time, the Guns of Navarone, Eastern Standard Time, and not Pink Panther, James Bond. Mm-hmm. So it became a bit of a thing, is that when ska had its second wind with the UK two-tone era in the 80s, they continued that theme, and people were doing stuff. And then so we thought, for the 1 year of ska, let's do 13 themes. And we also brought it into the modern. We did Curb Your Enthusiasm, we did Simpsons, I think it's Family Guy.
Family
Yeah,
Guy. You did Family Guy, not The
Family
Simpsons.
Guy. Yeah,
There's
Family
also
Guy.
a question I have coming up for you. Why?
Ah, okay, yeah. And yeah, we did kind of a couple of other ones and everything, and Austin Powers, and we do Austin Powers live apart from Get Smart, because that everyone that's kind of like, you know, that wasn't in the Austin Powers theme. It was actually called Soul Bossa Nova by Quincy Jones. You probably got the record in your collection there. Um, and that was a great thing of like, the good thing about that particular song from a production point of view is that it actually really taught me how to place horns properly. When we actually went to cover that song, we listened to the original, and I was just like, wow, I've never thought that was the setting. It's only when I had to listen to it from a technical point of view to kind of go, okay, that's how you do it. And so from that point onwards, we re-envisioned how the horns should sound and how we should even record them and produce them from our recordings from that point onwards. And it was a real thing of like having this very wide separation where the trombones were over here and the trumpets were over here, and you get a sense of the orchestra when you're listening to it. Whereas normally you would kind of just have this kind of, 10 past 10 kind of window, but it really opened it up a lot and gave it a lot of depth as well. So that for me, from a production point of view, doing those theme songs was a step up in the production value.
I do detect that you go for the absurder over the absurd. If you
Pretty
go
much.
for Family Guy over The Simpsons, and you go for Curb Your Enthusiasm over Seinfeld,
but yeah, totally.
You obviously have a pattern of just going that little step further.
It's just a jump to the left. Yeah, totally. The more left, the better. The one song that's actually defines the complete left, if you get a chance to listen to it, is off the One Year of Ska. It's a thing called Ska Noir.
Mm-hmm.
Have a listen to that, and that's probably the most left we'll ever get. But it's a word poetry kind of spoken word type of thing, which we've never done before. But I would release it as a single. I think I think the more left, the better. And the thing that someone hasn't done before, I haven't got the consensus from the rest of the band yet, but I'm still flying the flag to release that as a single.
Do you actually have a favourite Curb Your Enthusiasm moment?
When he stole the flowers from the and he tried to convince him that did someone stole the flowers? No. And the look on his face, I mean, Larry David, he's a genius.
Have you kept a tally as to how many members have been in the Melbourne Ska Orchestra over the years?
Yeah. We keep everybody on the books. I think there's only one person that isn't on the books because he's moved to another country permanently. Because even people that moved, like we had a saxophone player, Cam Hassard, who went to Berlin for 2 or 3 years, but he was on the books. And when we played overseas, he played with us. About 45 to 50. And we normally have, 23, 24 is our touring band, more if we're in Melbourne. So it's a bit like that, and just on the weekend, we had four new players for the first time, because everyone wasn't available, and sometimes you don't get the gigs early enough to let everybody know they've got something else booked. And so, and it was great. I was kind of like a little bit nervous about how this was going to turn up with 4 new members who may not, but they all had seen the band, they all knew the band, they all loved the band, and basically at the end of it said, anytime, So now I would say it's probably 49.
Well, it's a great story, a great success story, an Australian band on an international level, and 20 years, the big tour.
Yeah. And 20 years young. I mean, we're at the moment, how I feel, and I know how other members of the band feel, especially the composers, like we've got so many more albums in us, so many more areas that we want to explore. I mean, the recipe, the ingredients that you have before you and with an orchestra is like the ingredients you can have to how many recipes can you make out of these ingredients, and if you've got that many people, then why not do something unconventional? Why does everyone need to be playing an instrument? Why can't we just do a whole track that's just our vocals, imitating the instruments that we play? Or, so there's so many kind of different variations you can do. And for me, we're just kind of scratching the surface. That stuff happens. That's how it happens. Like we do. I would love to have a hit record. I would love to have a number one hit that's massive all around the world, because that would actually make it a lot easier to possibly, get a higher fee, and then I don't have to access my mortgage every time we need to pay for flights, which is kind of what's happening at the moment, because we have to pay for all these flights in advance. And so thankfully I have because it's not a financial venture, a band like this, but hopefully, we'll get to the point where it will be one day, but 20 years, we're still trying.
Well, if more people listen to the anniversary collection, if more people come to the shows over the next month, then your mortgage will be taken care of. There's Nicky Bomba. Good to have you here at Noise 11.
No worries. Thank you, brother.